Japanese criminal procedure. Okay.
Okay, please, you can continue.
Okay, and work experience, the August 1992, I was a lecturer of Kagawa University, Faculty of Law. The Kagawa University is in the Western Japan. Western Japan is very hot and very hot. And specialized, okay. And April 2003, I changed the universities from Kagawa University to Okayama University, Faculty of Law. And my specialization was also the criminal procedure. I teach the criminal procedure to the student of Faculty of Law in Okayama University. And in 2004, I changed the position of Okayama University. The School of Law, the Faculty of Law and the School of Law it's a little the difference. The School of Law is a graduate school to training the professional of lawyers. So the Faculty of Law, the student of Faculty of Law is younger than School of Law student. And 2011, I positioned the Dean of School of Law in Okayama University. For 4 years, I played a role of a Dean of School of Law in Okayama University. And resignation, I changed the university from Okayama University to Hokkaido University. That is 2015. 2015, I've changed the working place from Okayama University and Hokkaido University. The Hokkaido University is one of the most famous universities in the fields of social sciences and natural sciences, former imperial universities in Japan. Next. Okay, now let's start the lecture of this. Let's start from the lecture. Before explanation of criminal law, I want to touch upon the structure of Japanese law. As you see, of course, we have a constitution, the constitutional law. This is positioned the highest position. As you see, I want to explain in using the triangle. The constitutional law is positioned here, the highest position. Under the position, we have several, of course, several laws. The most and the very important and the basic laws, the substantive law and the procedural law. We have two kinds of laws. The substantive law, in lower position than the constitutional law. The substantive law has three basic code. The one of first of all, the civil code, and the criminal code. So we call the so-called penal code and the criminal code here, and the commercial law, commercial code here. And this is these are the substantive law and procedure law, and of course it is also a lower position compared with the highest position, the constitutional law. And procedure law have two kinds of procedure. The one is civil procedure code and criminal procedure code. And of course, the criminal code and the penal code and the criminal procedure code is called the totally the criminal law. You see, from until now, do you have any questions? No. Okay. Can I continue my lecture? Okay. How about, of course, I don't know the Indonesian law in detail.
Yeah, I think you can continue, but we same the structure. Of course, in Indonesia we have constitutional law too, and under the constitutional law, lower position like this we have the all criminal law, the all criminal code from the Dutch era. Yeah. Now we try to make some reform our penal code.
So the situation is the same as Japan.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, next chart. The principles of constitutional law, I want to say, our constitutional law has very important principles, three very important principles. The first of all, the principle of popular sovereignty. Of course, now the democratic country has a constitutional law. The very important principle is the popular sovereignty, I think. So if the civil people, we people, Japanese people, don't want to accept some kinds of law against the law, we have freedom of opinion and freedom of speech. So we can say no against the parliament. This shows us evidence of popular sovereignty. We can freedom of speech, and we can expression of we can have expression of opinion, expression of freedom. So this is a very important principle of our constitutional law. Of course, United States and England and other countries, so-called the democratic country, has the same as the situation. And next is renunciation of war. This is also the very important principle of our constitution. Maybe you know about Article 9 of Japanese constitutional law. As you see, as you understand, Japan was defeated by the Allied, the United States and England and France and other countries in the World War II. We surrender. So we have a new constitutional law in 1945. And in this constitutional law, we abolished the forces to have a war, to do war. So Article 9 in constitutional law, we decided to abolish the forces. But as you see, now we have self-defense forces. So it is a very difficult question. Japan has abolished really the forces or not. And in Japan, in nationwide, the self-defense forces problem is debatable. And next is the three principle, the respect of the fundamental human rights. Of course, as a democratic country, we have some kinds of freedom, admissibility of freedom or opinions freedom and expression of freedom, freedom of expression and freedom of opinion, publishment, the freedom of publishment, of course, several kinds of freedom. How about the Indonesian constitutional law? It is the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have an Indonesian Declaration of Independence. We have in 1945. We have Constitution of 1945. Of course, now we amendment. In general, we have some regulation concerning the human right, freedom of speech, and freedom to make religious and like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay.
But as you see, now Asian countries have several Asian countries have difficult problem a little bit. For example, Hong Kong or Myanmar or the People's of the Republic of China. I think, in my opinion, these countries have very severe problems in terms of democracy. But fortunately, we Japan and Indonesia has a very good constitution, in my opinion.
Yeah,
this
thank
is
you.
A happy thing. The next is sorry. Okay, I will explain about the fields of criminal law in Japan. And totally, generally speaking, criminal law is divided the three fields of criminal fields. The first of all, the criminal code or penal code, and as a substantive law, and criminal procedure, and this is a procedure law. And this is my specialty. And besides, there is criminal politics. This is not a law, but political science. As a political science, we have a criminal politics. This is a studying field. We have also this area. And the criminal code is divided furthermore, two parts: the general part and the special part. The general part and the special part, I will explain about it later on. And the criminal procedure is divided three steps. First of all, investigation by police and prosecution. The investigation step is a very important step because the defendants or the suspect's right and the investigation need is very, very comfortable, disputable, debatable. And the prosecution. The next step is the prosecution and trial and the judge. This each step is a very important step. And criminal politics is divided two areas to study. The first of all, analysis on the case of crime, a cause of crime. Why occurred this crime? For example, opium, or opium, and why is opium occurrence is very increasing under the status quo, and as to reduce the opium crisis, or how is what the policy we have to take? The politics against politics. This is a politics against the crime. This is a example, and other examples. For example, if the murder case is increasing, the why is the increasing of murder, and to do that against that, what kind of policy we have to take? This is a politics against the crime. So those areas is in the criminal politics, and of course, we Japan has about 1,000 scholars, 1,000 professors in each university in Japan. But half of the professors in Japan are studying the criminal code, and half of the professor the criminal procedure. And the criminal politics, the specialists is not so many in Japan. So how is Indonesia? Haraman. How many professors in Indonesia university? So I can hear you. I can't hear you.
Compared to the another professor in another field like constitutional law and civil law, in criminal law is a very little professor. We have a little number of them. I don't know, maybe it's same. No, but nobody, I think is not interesting. Maybe I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. And my student too. If we compare the another student in another field, criminal law student is not too much compared to another field. Yeah, maybe criminal law is very pure, you
Very
know.
good. Oh,
Pure,
really?
yeah, maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe we
Okay.
can make research about it.
Okay, no problem. Okay, next step, next chart. I will go to the next chart. This is the current situation of criminal crime in Japan. I'm very sorry. This is this chart in Japanese, but the tendency I want to know, I want to make you know the tendency of the Japanese current situation. This is arrested rate ratio in Japan in criminal cases, and this the yellow chart, yellow zone is theft case, and this violet zone is crime number exclusive in theft. So theft is very lots of theft case in Japan, but exclusive theft, the murder or robbery and other offenses is like so. So not so many. For example, the 2017, this is the year of 2017. The number of the crime is 20, 215, 215,000,
1
215,000.
years.
So not so many in Japan.
Yeah.
And the criminal, the arrested rate is at the beginning of, at the end of the war, after the end of the war is very high, it's 70%. The crime was arrested, but now is 35.7. It is increasing, gradually increasing. But at the worst year, it's 20% is 2000 to 2000. So it's about after it's about 20 years ago. It is the worst number in terms of arrested number. So Japanese police is a very anxiety this number, but now it's gradually increasing. This is the current situation of the crime in Japan. Okay, the next chart shows us content of Japanese criminal code. I want to shorten the Japanese criminal code is JCC, rather long. So I will say the JCC in short. On the general part of criminal code, I want to explain about it. In the fields of general part of criminal code, I want to I'm analyzed on the concept of the criminal, mainly the concept of the criminal. For example, the fields of the general part of criminal code, we are studying, for example, what is a crime, the concept of crime, what is a crime, and the second, what elements are necessary to the crime. For example, the act, we say this act is a crime, not so it is difficult to explain about crime must be act. For example, even if man is thinking a bad thing, but of course this is not crime. We can say this is crime. We can say this is crime is the act. So it is very important. And so criminal, this is a mistake. Criminal result, basically, if the crime is field, if the crime is established, we need, it is necessary for us to get the criminal result. So it is basically, and no existence of defense, of course. As you see, if the man committed the crime, but it is impossible to avoid, and it is self-defense. As a self-defense act, it is not crime. So, in other words, no existence of defense. It is a crime, and we need the punishable age. In Japan, the over 40 years, over the liability is over 40 years. So if if the child committed the crime, of course, it is not punishable. This is elements, a necessity of a crime. And third is what is the attempt offense? Of course, in Japan, attempt act is punishable. In the crime, it depends on the crime. And of course, but why the attempt offense is punishable? Reason why the attempt offense is punished, etc., etc. We are examining, we are studying in the fields of attempt offense as a general part of criminal code. And most difficult areas, complicity. And the complicity area in general part of criminal code is a very difficult field to understand. So what is complicity? What is the difference between inducement, accessoryship, and the core principles? Of course, as a complicity is very punishable, but the theory of complicity is a very, very difficult area to understand. But of course, the complicity is punishable. And the general part of criminal code, in the fields of general part of the criminal code, we are studying these points. See? And second is a special part of criminal code we have. The criminal code is divided into two fields of area. The first of all, a general part of criminal code, and the second is a special part of criminal code. In these fields and areas, we have two categories. We have three categories of the crime. The first of all, the crime against the individual interest. For example, the murder and the bodily injury and intimidation, the rape or theft and the fraud, and so on and so on. This is concerning the individual interest. This is a very important area of a special part of criminal code. You see, this is a special part of criminal code book. The Japanese student, most of the Japanese students use this textbook. And the second part, second areas of a special part of criminal code is a criminal against the social interest. The social interest and the crime is concerning social interest is in the, for example, arson or forgery. This is belonging to the social interest. And third is a crime against the national interest. for example, insurrection and corruption, and so on and so on. These areas is concerning the crime against the national interest. So the special part of criminal code is divided the three fields of interest. The first of all, individual interest, and life or body, or for example, 財産, the money, the private estimate, or something like that. And the social interest is fire or forgery. And third is a national interest, is concerning the corruption or insurrection. Anyway, the special part of criminal code is has three kinds of criminal interest. How about the Indonesian?
Okay. We have Indonesian criminal code divided into three parts. The first is general rules, like in Japan. Secondly, is special. We call it the crime and the offense. Book to a crime, the crime with intent. Intent. And the third is offense without intent.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Maybe I like to explain your presentation in Indonesia for our student. Maybe. Okay. Oke, Bapak Ibu sekalian, jadi di Jepang itu terdiri dari berbeda dengan di Indonesia. Mereka dua buku saja. Nanti mungkin di KUHP baru juga dua buku ya. Ada ketentuan umum, kemudian yang kedua adalah ketentuan khusus. But in Indonesia, in Japan, you have three part of the special part in crime against individual, crime against social interest, and crime against national interest. This is formal divided in criminal law book, or this is your presentation. You try to make some structure, new structure. In Indonesia, of course, we have a crime against individual, but we have the crime against state. Of course, in national against state, for example, if we murder the president, this is a crime against the state interest, like that. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, next I will explain the background of Japanese criminal law. First of all, I'd like to touch upon the history of JCL, Japanese criminal law. The 18,080, the former criminal code was in Japan. This criminal code was influenced by the France. At the beginning of modern law in Japan was influenced by France. But 18,089, we had the Constitution of the Empire of Japan in Meiji era. This constitutional law was influenced by Germany, because the France, it was a very, very freedom country. So at that time, the Japanese government disliked the freedom, because at that time, in Meiji era, of course, from the beginning of the history of Japan, we had the emperor. So the Meiji era's government's people, politicians, thought the emperor is the center of the Japanese people. Emperor was the Japanese people. In accordance with that thought, we had the Constitution of Empire of Japan. And in accordance with the Constitution of the Empire of Japan, we had the criminal code. Of course, this criminal code was influenced from Germany. As you see, at that time, Germany was Kaiser. The empire, Germany was also the Kaiser emperor's country. So the sort of law in Germany was suitable for Japan. So at that 97, the criminal code was imported from Germany. But as I said before, the 1945 end of the World War II, there was a very big change, big change of the law thought in Japan. In these areas, in these years, we were controlled by GHQ, America, the occupation by America, especially GHQ. So America's politicians and the army had a strong power to Japan and the Japanese politicians. And they required the change of the constitutional law and the criminal procedure, especially criminal procedure. That was a very bad law to protect the freedom of the Japanese people. So from 1945 to 2021, Japanese criminal law went on partly, but the Japanese law's influence. Excuse me, I will explain again. Although the GHQ and America had a very big power in 1945 against the Japan and the Japanese politicians, but the Japanese criminal code was not changed so big because the Japanese criminal code has modeled German law. The German law had a very big influence, the strong big influence to a Japanese criminal code. But criminal procedure is a big change. 1948, Japanese criminal procedure law, the big change. In the fields of criminal procedure, we were being Americanized. So there is a total difference between Japanese criminal code and Japanese procedure code, because the Japanese criminal code was not so big change. We maintained the sort of German law, but in the fields of the Japanese criminal procedure, we have changed we have changed big the Americanized. Well, we have to change and because of strong influence of America. This is a Japanese criminal code and the criminal procedure codes history. In other words, the character of JCC, Japanese criminal code. As you say, German criminal theory is a very strong influence to Japan from Meiji era until now. For example, the German criminal code, German criminal theory is a written law and interpretation of the text in interpretation of the code. This is a main studying in the fields of criminal code. Of course, now a Japanese professor whose specialization is criminal code go to German Germany. Not almost the professors whose specialization criminal code is goes to Germany to study the criminal code. Almost and very few of professors go to England and the United States because it is meaningless to study the it is to exaggerate. It is not so meaning to go to the United States or England and Australia. The almost of the student, almost of the professor of criminal code go to Germany to study the criminal code. This is a very important thing, and because the Germany has now also very important and very big power and a big influence to Japanese to Japan. For example, now I say the Japanese criminal code's main study is the interpretation of the text. For example, the Japanese criminal code 199, the murder code, a person who kills another person is punished by the death penalty or imprisonment or for life or for a definite term of not less than 5 years. We have this code as a murder. But in this sense, in this code, for example, in the first place, what is a person? What's the concept of the person? The Japanese criminal code professor is studying the words, the content of this word, which means when start from person and when the end of the person. For example, in the first place, what is a person's concept? Japanese professor whose specialization is criminal code is studying now, for example. Other example, the 235, it is a theft code. A person who steals the property of another person commits a crime of theft and is punished by blah blah. And for example, what is a steal or what is the property in the first place? The criminal procedure, criminal code professor is analyzing this concept of this word. And Article 236 in the robes, the robbery code. What is a robes? Which act is suitable for robes? And 246, the defaults, and the frauds code in Japanese criminal code, and of course the professors of criminal code is analyzing on what is defaults, what is requirement to establish the frauds crime. This is an example, but the interpretation of the text is a main study, main analysis of for criminal code professors. This is just the German laws influence, we can say, so that. On the next, the chart shows us the requirement of the crime in Japan. First of all, to require the crime, we have three kinds of fields of requirements. We need the three kinds of requirements. First of all, to establish the crime, the objective elements is field. In German, the Tatbestand, we say, it is very easy for us to explain in German because, as you say, the criminal code is influenced by Germany. So it is very difficult for me to study, to explain in English. But of course, we can say the objective elements, we can say the In the field of the objective elements, we are examining this act is the criminal act or not. And the criminal result, well, we can see the criminal result or not. And there is a causal link between act and the criminal result or not. Or attempts. This is attempts act, but it is punishable or not as attempt. This is an example, but these elements is examined in the fields of objective elements field. And the next is defense. In German, Rechtswidrigkeit. The defense area, for example, this act is belonging to the justifiable acts or self-defense or necessity. If the act belongs to justifiable acts or defensible and necessity, it is not punishable. So it is not crime. Yeah? And the third step, the final step, the hurdle is culpability, the liability. In German, the Schuld. In the field of this culpability, this act is committed by intent or negligence, or this act is committed competency, and the actor, the crime is punishable, reached the punishable age or not. These elements is examined in the fields of the capability, culpability. So if the crime, we can say that act is crime, the act is filled with three kinds of elements. First of all, objective elements, and defense, and necessity. Necessity, not so, culpability. So all of the elements are filled. This is a crime, the crime establishment. For example, first of all, the objective elements is examined. And the next step is the defense. And the final step is culpability. And these elements is are filled under crime. Or we can say that crime. So the actor is punishable. But if the objective elements is not filled, or the defense is adapted, and the culpability is adapted, is not crime. So it is not the act, and the crime is not punishable.
Yeah.
This is structure of the Japanese criminal code. Now, how is the Indonesian criminal theory?
Yeah, I think we have same, but we have same similarity concerning the defense, culpability, and objective element. But I see your presentation, we have different concerning the limitation of sanction. You know, in Indonesia, we have in criminal code, we have no minimalize of the sanction. But in Japan, I saw that you have in regulation that minimalize of sanction for 5 years. For example, in the murder, you have minimalized sanction, but we not have this regulation in the criminal code. But in another rule or act concerning the criminal, we have the minimalized sanction. That is.
I can't hear you. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. Maybe we have similarity. Similarity. Okay, you hear that? Hello? Hello?
Okay.
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 Yeah. Okay. We have similarity concerning the general part, concerning defense, culpability, objective element. Of course, we cannot punish the person who commit the crime if he do that by defense, or they have no culpability, no have mens rea. Okay, but we have differences concerning the sanction, regulation of sanction. In Japan, you have minimalized sanction for the article, but in Indonesia, especially in criminal code, we have no special sanction regulation concerning one of the special article. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your explanation. I understand. For example, requirements of the crime. Again, I will explain about it in detail. So, for example, justifiable acts, the Article 35, the act performed in accordance with laws and regulations or in the pursuit of lawful business is not punishable. It is not punishable, of course, and self-defense. Of course, Indonesia, you have a same code in your criminal code, and in Japan, we have Article 36, an act was compelled to protect the rights of oneself of another person against imminent and unlawful infringement is not punishable. So if someone attacked to me, of course I against the attacked, of course, also, but it is a self-defense. It is not punishable, of course.
Yeah. Defense ourselves, our defend ourselves, or not ourselves, or only ourselves, our wife, or concerning the moral, we have obligation to protect ourselves and our property. If someone will take our property and will do something to our wife and ourselves, we have self-defense.
Okay. And the necessity, it is a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Code is very long, so I am very difficult to explain about it, but omit it through. And the next is the culpability. It is concerning the culpability, the intent. The Article 35, an act performed without the intent to commit a crime is not punishable. Of course, if a man has the intent to commit a crime, that act is, of course, punishable. But without intention, the naturally act is it is not punishable, of course. And the attempt is exception in the fields of punishment. But it depends on the defense. But some crimes, in the fields of some crimes, attempt act is also punishable. Attempt is punishable only when specifically so provided in the article concerned. So this means the attempt's punishment is exceptional, exception. The function of the criminal code. Why is the existence of the criminal code? Japan has two functions. First of all, the protect of the legal interest. So of course, we have criminal law and criminal code to protect the people's interest, people's legal interest. So, which means the object of punishment is, of course, criminal act. As I said before, the object of punishment is not thought or immoral act, etc., etc. This act is these are thought as unpunishable. We cannot give the punishment to this thought or immoral act. Of course, if the young man is in the train, and elderly people get on the train. And if the young man don't change the seat to the elderly people, this is an immoral act, we can say, but it is not punishable because the young man doesn't change the seat to the elderly people. It is an immoral act, but it is not a punishable act. This is a very important point. Of course, there is a strict distinction between immoral punishable act and unpunishable act. This is a very important point in the field of criminal code. Anyway, the criminal code, the role is to protect the legal interest. And secondly, the criminal code, the role is a guarantee to freedom. Of course, the criminal code has power to punish against the people, but we have to strictly control what kind of act is punishable and what kind of act is unpunishable. We have to strict distinction. So principle of legality, nulla poena sine lege. This is Latin, but important principle in the fields of criminal code. Previously, we have to determine and express to the people, as I said before, what kind of act is the crime, what kind of the act is not crime. We have to we have to clarify the distinction. This is a very important rule and principle of the criminal code. And due process of law. As I said before, in the history about the history of the criminal code, 1945, the United States had a very big power and a big influence to the Japan. So at that time, we had new constitution in accordance with the United States Constitution. In that era, we had learned the sort of due process. Before that, we don't have a due process sort. We had due process sort, but now under the status quo, we had a constitution in accordance with due process of law, which means we have to obey the consequence. We have to obey. We have to support and democracy. So in accordance with the democracy, we have to think. We have to think in accordance of the constitutional law. So as that result, to adopt the criminal code, we have to accordance with due process of law. So the politicians has to obey the constitution and the constitution and in accordance with due process of law. So summary, we have to Japan has a criminal law in the fields of criminal law divided three fields of area. First of all, the criminal code and the criminal procedure and criminal politics. And most of the professor in Japan goes to Germany to study the criminal code. And the criminal procedure was strongly influenced from United States. So to tell the truth, half of the professor whose specialization is criminal procedure goes to the United States, but half of the professors of criminal procedure go to Germany. To tell the truth, actually, my specialization is a German law in criminal procedure. So each year I go to Germany to study, to learn the theory of German law, German criminal procedure law. The criminal politics, not so many professors are studying criminal politics, but of course, some professors are studying the criminal politics. They are going to United States. They, of course, United States has a big power to Japan in the field, not only in the fields of law, but also in the fields of economics and other sociology and natural sciences, of course. So anyway, our criminal law is divided to 3 areas. And today we explained, I have explained about the criminal code. The criminal code, 2 areas, general part, analysis of general requirements to the crime. And the second is a special part of the criminal code. Here, we are studying, we are analyzing each criminal act, especially interpretation of the text is the main role. This is a criminal code. And the requirements of the crime, the 3 requirements must be filled to the crime. First of all, objective elements and the defense, the culpability. These elements are filled. All the elements are filled. This is a crime, and we are punishable. But even if when one element of the 3 elements is not existent, we are not punishable anymore. And the function of the crime, the criminal code, of course, the protect the legal interest and guarantee to freedom. This is a criminal code in Japan, or Japanese criminal code. So we are not punished to the thought or immoral act. Anyway, only the criminal act is the punishable, and the guarantee to freedom. With Japan is in the democracy country. Japan is a democratic country, so the most important point is in democracy to guarantee to freedom to the people. To adapt the criminal code must be obeyed, the sort of the democracy. So a guarantee to freedom is a very important principle in the criminal code. This is a very important point. Okay, now the end of the class. Well, if you have any questions, please ask me some clear points. I have to apologize that my English ability is not so enough. Some points, of course, we have several points to that you cannot understand clearly. So please ask me without hesitation.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Very perfect, you know. Ueda Sensei, you have some question in chat box. In chat box, you can see in chat box. No, I can read for you. Okay, you have four questions. You know, first from Ari. Ari, he is a young lawyer in our faculty. I think the first question is you have already answered, because in your presentation you explained it about that. She asks you concerning Japan criminal law under Japan legal system, like does the Japan criminal law implement the capital sentence? Of course, you explained it that Japanese have capital sentence. Yeah. After that, what kind of crime could be punished with capital sentence? And maybe this important question concerning the criminal politic or criminal policy, how the effective the policy in reducing the criminal itself. You know, the Japanese are very famous concerning the low crime, no crime in Japan. Of course, this is they should be have a policy. How the Japanese policy, of course, the criminal policy to reducing the reducing the crime in Japan. This is the first question.
This is the first question. It is a very difficult question. So your question is about the efficiency of the criminal politics to reduce the crime.
Yeah.
It depends on the crime. It depends on the crime. For example, wait a minute. For example, now Japan is a very serious problem. Japan has a very serious problem about the drug crime. Of course, the Japanese police and prosecutor, the Japanese Ministry of Justice, has some kinds of policy against the drug crime. But it is very difficult to reduce the drug crime because it is very, very difficult to catch and arrest the drug users. And it is very difficult to find out the importance of the drug from the foreign countries. Yeah, so it is very difficult to control and to reduce the drug crime. But the murder crime, it is very, very few in Japan. Because I think, in my opinion, Japanese police activity or prosecutors' activity are very, very effective against the murder. Tomorrow, I will explain about the situation of murder or robbery or theft and other important crimes. The murder case is very, very few when it comes to comparing with the Western countries, because as I say, the police control, policeman's control and patrol is very, very effective to reduce the murder case. Of course, sometimes it occurs, the serious murder case occurs in Japan also, but the number of murder cases is very few. It is very, very effective. The criminal politics very, very effective against the murder. Your question is about the efficiency of the criminal politics. It depends on the criminal, I say.
Okay. The second question is concerning the COVID pandemic. Like maybe we have different policy. You know, in Indonesia we use the criminal law. We use the criminal law to and the pandemic, COVID pandemic arose. For example, if we not use the masker, you know, the police will catch us. How about in Japan?
Yeah, it's a very important and a very interesting question. As you see, as I say, Japan is a democracy country, and the criminal code's role is to protect the freedom of the Japanese people. Of course, many, most of the Japanese put on the mask.
Yeah, yeah.
The COVID-19, but there is no punishment. Although even if the people doesn't put on the mask the outside when we get out.
Yeah.
So, but interestingly, without the punishment to not put on the mask, most of the Japanese, almost 100% of Japanese put on the mask voluntarily. There is no need. It is necessary for us to have a punishment to have a punishment against non-mask people. But it is. But of course, the United States or other Western countries has a very has an attitude against the strong, strict attitude as a government against the people, non-mask people. Other countries, Western countries, has a penalty against those people.
Yeah, yeah.
There is no custom. There is no custom in the Western countries to put on in daily life.
Okay, maybe in Japanese have a custom to use the mask every day, daily life. You know. Yeah. Right. It's not need not need sanction, criminal sanction. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It is a very good for Japanese politicians.
Okay. Okay. This is from Aura Puspita, our student, undergraduate student. She also my daughter. Okay, she asks you that how is the mechanism is Japanese local wisdom? Japanese local wisdom.
Japanese local,
local wisdom when dealing with crime against national interests, especially corruption. You have Japanese local wisdom to dealing the corruption, you know?
Corruption.
How the Japanese dealing with corruption? Use the local wisdom, not the criminal court, maybe.
Sorry, I can't understand your question in detail.
Yeah.
I will ask you. I will answer you tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, this Japanese famous the country which have the culture high culture. You know, sometimes the high culture of the Japanese will have to dealing with crime. They not use the written law, but they use the culture, what we call Japanese local wisdom, like customary in Japanese, dealing with the crime.
ちょっとわかんないな。Sorry, さん、Mr. Haraman, please send me your question in email later on.
Okay.
I will answer tomorrow.
Okay. And from another our young lecturer, she also the student of doctor degree. She question, how does Japan see illegal fishing or illegal fishing, catch the fish are illegal in the sea of the Japanese Sea, you know? How are other criminally related fisheries? The fisheries, right? Fish, sakana,
はい。
It is grouped in social national interest, or this is the individual interest. There are special court to handle who catch the fish illegal.
Illegal, yeah. Yes, that's right.
You have special court that? Okay,
Yes,
that's the question.
Right. The hang up. Okay. 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 Hear you. Can you hear you? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The third question is very difficult. Also. Okay. Is someone who have some questions? No.
In chat box.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can see the question in chat box.
Chatimo.
Chatting box in the under screen, you know.
Okay. Hi. Wow. Oh, thank you very much. There's several questions here. It is a lot of questions. I can't understand. I can't understand quickly. Wow. If it's okay, I will ask you. I will answer tomorrow. It is a very difficult to answer now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Amazing presentation as well as fruitful discussion concerning. Okay. Now, I have to apologize. My question is, my lecture is not so suitable for you to understand the Japanese criminal law because of lack of my English ability. So I have to apologize. I'm so sorry. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I will explain about the criminal procedure.
Okay.
Of course, the criminal procedure is my specialization. The criminal law is not my specialization. So tomorrow is better than today.
Okay. This is the time is up. Okay. We arrive in another time to leave now. But I would like to say thank you very much to you that you give a lecture to our student. Now we have 150 students follow this lecture in General Stadium.
Oh.
Okay. You can see in the chat. It's very rare moment for us to get the lesson from the prominent professor from Japan, and how I hope next year you will give another speech in our university. Yeah, maybe this is a routine agenda for us. Okay, thank you very much. Oke, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Oke, thank you very much. Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita akhiri perjumpaan kita hari ini. Terima kasih atas perhatian. Ueda Sensei, konnichiwa wa Ueda watashi tachi no seito ya yung lecture in Yukyo oshitete kurete makoto to arigato gozaimashita. Hai.
Selamat jalan. Sampai besok.
Oke.
Tada.
Ya, oke. Good. Thank you. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Okay. In same time. Thank you. Bye. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye. Oke, Bapak Ibu sekalian, terima kasih ya. atas perhatiannya. Mudah-mudahan ada tambahan pengetahuan. Jadi pada dasarnya dia menjelaskan tadi ada beberapa persamaan dan perbedaan antara hukum pidana Indonesia dan hukum pidana di Jepang. Persamaannya mereka mengatur juga tentang buku pertama. Buku pertama itu ketentuan umum. Ketentuan umumnya bicara juga mengenai percobaan, kemudian juga pembelaan diri, hampir sama dengan, bahkan azas-azasnya pun sama. Karena apa? Karena Indonesia juga kan dari Belanda, Belanda dari Jerman juga. Mereka mengenal juga azas nullum delictum nolla pona. Kan begitu. Karena orang Jepang KUHP-nya dipengaruhi oleh Jerman. Jadi mereka banyak belajar hukum pidana dari Jerman sehingga banyak berpengaruh terhadap hukum pidana di Jepang. Ya. Nah, perbedaannya mereka di beberapa pasal mereka sudah membuat minima khusus mesti pembunuhan tadi dipidana mati 15 atau paling minimal 5 tahun. Jadi mereka mengenal minima khusus dalam KUHP-nya. Kalau kita tidak ada minima khusus karena kita minima umum. Minimum umum itu adalah 1 hari kan? 1 hari untuk seluruh kejahatan. Kalau di Jepang mereka setiap pasalnya ada minima khusus dan mereka juga mengenal itu di dalam mereka hanya 1 buku. Kalau kita kan banyak buku-buku lain di luar KUHP. Mudah-mudahan setelah pembuaran hukum pidana nanti pembuaran KUHP nanti kita menjadi 1 buku. Baik, terima kasih atas perhatian. Untuk mudah-mudahan ini ada manfaatnya bagi kita semua. Wabillahi taufik wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you ya.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih.